Captain. Incoming message.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Groovy.
Hi-ho. This is me, Kermit the Frog.
Hello there.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Not a great plan.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Hey there, we're those Sci-Fi guys, and this is that Those Sci-Fi Guys show. Just two working dudes, different lives, different jobs, but a whole lot of love for science fiction and St. Patrick's Day is still with me, folks. I'm your host, P.S. McKay, coming to you live. And you already know the state of which I am. How are you doing, sir?
I'm DTO Cavman, and I hope everybody had a delightful St. Patrick's Day.
DTO Cavman, nice.
Well, you know, I hope everybody's enjoying the start of their St. Patrick's Day week. I know I have, and I'm continuing my celebrations and revels.
As you should. As you should. I didn't have a lot planned for St. Patrick's for me. We just went to the in-laws, and we had the traditional Irish dinner of potato Knishes.
Interesting.
Not a traditional Irish dinner. We're coming up on Passover, though, so... I've been dying for a potato Knish for a long time, and there is not a single Jewish deli where I live that has them. So my mother-in-law eventually just was like, I can make them. And she did, and they were fantastic.
Well, that's good. But you see, this is why you got to come back to the East Coast. You can actually celebrate St. Patrick's Day with real Irish people. And you can, find delicatessen.
Get some decent challah and some Knishes ready to go.
I guess in California you can get some decent challah, out there. But
yeah, I'd have to travel to San Francisco or
not
LA. Forget that. So yeah, so that's what we had. Very very low key, nice evening with the in-laws and everything. We were talking about the announcement of my book that I'll be making a more official announcement. Yeah, it's I'm proofing it right now for the final print. So
well, when everybody was over here for my daughter's birthday, it got out of control. In addition to the things I mentioned before, we went to yet another small Rhode Island town to do some kitschy shopping. And then we ended up doing Chinese food in one town over before we came back here for cake. But while we were doing that, since I had just recently got the hardcover the paperback of your first book, I made sure to go and show it to my family, who all raved about it.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thank you.
and I showed them the proof of the cover for your new one, and we all agreed that it's much better with your wife on the cover, Besides which, Mrs. Kaufman is actually allergic to seafood, so she couldn't even pick up the cover.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we can mention his name, Fish McGill.
I refuse to. I'm kidding. Just having a little fun. No, it was a great book, and it was a great design, and your wife did a very nice job of kind of tying in with the pre-existing design.
It was she stayed with the motif. There was it's a delicate balance. Quite honestly, I couldn't afford Fish this time around. I mean, and he deserves to be paid, for his work.
We all deserve to be paid for our work, but it's life, and that doesn't always happen.
Exactly. And I mean, he's an art professor out of Boston, and I'm sure his life is busy and everything. I loved what he did with the first book. I just couldn't. Yeah, those are the circumstances in which we are right now. So my wife is a fantastic designer of her own accord, and she actually
Most definitely.
had a designing studio. That's I would say the name, but she's not really doing it anymore. But she would design a whole bunch of stuff, business cards and things like that. There's a whole town. There's a whole business in Old Town over here that it's all of her design is the front window of the beauty salon. And that was her doing. So she's not a
Oh my.
she's not a novice when it comes to design and art and whatnot. So, and I just, when she made that, I just couldn't stop looking at the book proof for hours. that
Oh my.
that picture of Aziz Ansari from Community going, it's beautiful. I've been looking at it for 5 hours now. Oh, you didn't watch Community, did you?
Well, I mean, no, I didn't. The thing is, Aziz Ansari he just comes across very punchable a lot of times.
Oh, he played a very punchable character in the beginning.
He played a very punchable character in his little run-on Scrubs. I've listened to his stand-up. Sometimes he's extraordinarily punchable. That being said,
Wow!
oh my God. And he's like Peter Griffin. Will beat on a punchline until it dies a horrible, bloody death.
Yeah. I can understand his stand-up is not for everyone. His last stand-up was actually pretty good. And it was very different from what his normal stuff is, and it was very funny. I enjoyed it. But yeah, I get it. I understand your position in that regard. Anyway, I liked the design my wife made, and I just can't stop looking at it. So I'll be making the official announcement probably in the next episode or two about where to find it and everything once I get the printer approved. So. Yeah. Anyway, how about you, DT? How was your St. Paddy's? Paddy.
You know, it was really nice. I mean, I can't argue with it. It was really nice. The family tradition in the extended caveman relations is all of us from this side of the family go to my uncle's house a couple towns over. My uncle, who in the last years of my grandparents' lives, basically stayed with them, helped take care of them. And there's one of the main reasons why my daughter even has some memories of some of her grandparents.
Nice.
Because, he helped take care of them.
Right.
And when they passed, he basically got the house. He stayed. And they were in a retirement, like a 55 and up community, and they were pretty happy there. But when they passed, and my uncle, of course, was over 55, so he stayed. And, there's a lot of pictures in the house and of them. But at my nephew's birthday, the previous weekend, my uncle had asked for pictures of my daughter, my cousin's kid, and, just in general had been asking for people with pictures. So when we came over the following weekend, for St. Patrick's Day, there were all these new pictures of family, in addition to the older pictures of the family. So
nice.
There was a little nook where there's all the new generation, my daughter, my nephew, my cousin's kid, all right there. And that was nice. There were pictures of my grandparents, pictures of, because my uncle is my dad's brother, so it's all my dad's side of the family and whatnot. And of course, my uncle has taken over making my grandmother's famed corned beef and cabbage. And let me tell you, and this is a house in a 55 and up community. Okay.
Yeah.
There were 20 people in there. It was stuffed, loaded to the gills.
Yeah, that is not a big abode, if you will.
18 people, 13 and above, 2 2-year-olds, and a dog.
Yeah, that's well,
And
good on
and
you guys. Good on you guys.
it was wonderful. Everybody brought too much food. Everybody ate too much food.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful. The family had a great time. The little kids played together. A lot of people, cousins and aunts and uncles and whatnot were, wishing my daughter her happy birthday, because my daughter's birthday falls before St. Patrick's Day, the week
Right.
before St. Patrick's Day. So, and my nephew's falls a couple of days before hers. So, it's just this big,
Very
big
busy
long
time
party.
of year for you guys.
And think about it from a 2-year-old's perspective. The very first, oh, there's tons of presents. Oh, but they're for me. Yay. And then he's at my daughter's birthday. He's like, oh, there's tons of presents. Well, they must be for
They
me.
must be.
My daughter was very sweet, and he would open the presents, and if it wasn't like a truck, he didn't really give a shit.
Right, yeah.
So he
and that's the
he would,
that's
but
the
he
mental
opened. He
maturity of your
basically
daughter right there.
She was, well, she loves him. They have a lot of fun together, and she, has spent the last 2 years helping him, like starting his rapping and stuff like that. So we take it off. So like, she was fine with it. And he wasn't taking the presents, just unwrapping things. So it was funny, but it was wonderful because, this is, you're from an Irish Catholic family. There's more people at St. Patrick's Day than there are at Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas
this was interesting when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's
that time of year too. A lot of people will tend to get sick, and
yes.
But fortunately, I really do think we had more people here than at Christmas, and it was really nice.
Nice.
It was the most we've had together in a long time, and it was just really. My heart was full all day.
Good.
So,
Good. Well,
it was a
I'm happy
wonderful
for you
time
to
and a
have
wonderful
had
feeling.
experienced that.
Yeah, me too.
Something that you could expect more down the line, after
And
not
yeah,
being deployed all the time.
That is a very big deal.
Yeah. So, well, very good. Very good. Yeah, I always, St. Patrick's Day to me is always one of those things where I kind of look forward to it because it's a nice, neat day to celebrate Irishness and whatnot. But it's also like, I wake up the next morning, I'm like, well, there's no presents under a tree. There's no baskets filled with, presents or whatnot, or eggs or things like that. It's not even like 4th of July for me, where we host a big barbecue not barbecue, a cookout, and then a bunch of fireworks at the end after sunset. It's just, okay, well, maybe I'll put on the Clancy Brothers and, do some laundry, and then when it's time for dinner, we'll head on over to the family.
Clancy Brothers always good.
Yeah.
The next and in many ways, like Star Trek, the Clancy Brothers, the next generation is even bigger.
Yes, this is true. But there's no like big Irish, parade, St. Patrick's Day parade where I live, and I live in the middle of Central California. Like,
Well, again, that's your fault.
I understand your recruiting ability here, and you're trying really hard, but it's not going to happen. I mean, I'll visit. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we haven't fucking done that either. So
Haven't done that. I know.
I'll continue to tell you to move back if only that gets your ass to visit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, have you seen airline prices lately? Jesus.
Train. Hey, dual reverse wagon train.
Oh my God. Wagons East?
A movie that wasn't exactly stellar, but I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed. And it makes me miss John Candy.
Well, I mean, you got Richard Lewis in there and John Candy.
He just died.
Eugene Levy. I mean,
Yeah,
by all
Richard
rights,
Lewis
that
just
movie.
died.
Yeah, that
Who
movie
else
should have
was in
been
it?
like a powerhouse of comedy.
I thought it was funny. They had John C. McGinley was in it.
Wow.
He was interesting. Actually, he was actually pretty damn funny, but maybe not as sensitive.
No, probably not. Probably not. But
Actually, a lot of people from that movie are dead. The guy who played
Oh.
the cavalry colonel, he's dead. Charles
well,
Rocket.
I mean, it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of these guys. I mean, Richard Lewis, I think was in his 70s, but like John Candy died in his early 40s. Charles Rocket died in his early 40s. I mean, it's a little too young, I would say.
Well, agreed there. Jesus, we are in those early 40s. I'm just looking at the list here. Abraham Ben Ruby,
Yeah.
Ryan Cutrona, Thomas F. Duffy. Yeah, these are names that aren't really ringing a bell.
Oh, Abraham Ben Ruby is.
What was he in?
Well, he had a long-running recurring role on ER. He was like the big orderly or male nurse. He was on there. And if you'd see him, you'd recognize him. He's just this big dude. Actually, I loved him. I loved him in Open Range with Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Ethan Phillips and Robert Picardo.
I did know Robert Picardo was in there. I forgot about Ethan Phillips. Robert Picardo was basically Robert Picardo.
Yeah.
Gripey, whiny. I think he was the doctor or something like that. No, Richard Lewis was a doctor. That's right. Something it was ridiculous. Needless to say, it was ridiculous.
Well, anyway, I guess that's our key. I mean, that was an effective movie because that was John Candy's last, where he was in production and everything with it.
Yeah.
And then I mean, his last full movie was Canadian Bacon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a good send off. That came out after Wagons East too.
Well, it was a Michael Moore movie too.
No, it wasn't. Was it?
Yeah, it was Michael Moore.
No, the Michael Moore?
The Michael Moore.
Are you serious?
It poked fun at the military industrial. It poked fun at the military industrial complex.
Michael Moore hates this frickin' country.
It was damn funny though. I laughed.
Canadian Bacon was awesome. Yeah, it was. That was a great movie. I'm disappointed. Did he write it? Yeah, he wrote it. Did he direct it? Well, I suppose
Kevin
I can just
Pollak
click on.
was in it.
Yeah, Kevin Pollak.
Rip Torn.
Michael Moore directed Canadian Bacon. Jesus.
Rhea Perlman.
Yeah, Rhea Perlman was awesome.
Dan Aykroyd had a cameo, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were cameos.
Jim Belushi.
Wallace Shawn. He had literally a picture cameo at the end of the movie.
As what?
The president of Canada.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Wow. Roger Dunn? Really? Huh. Oh, good times. All right.
Yeah.
So, but enough about historical comedies or, comedies about us going to war with our nearest neighbor.
Right.
Let's talk about pathos, shall we?
And as I'm looking at my list here, I'm like, I think almost all of them are military-centric episodes.
Well, I have to say, before we go into it, I did take the opportunity to I rewatched The Siege of AR-558.
AR-558.
Yeah. great episode. And then I watched It's Only a Paper Moon. That's the first time I had seen it since it first aired, and I didn't realize how integral Vic Fontaine was in helping Nog. You talked about it, and I vaguely remembered the bits and pieces about it. But and I remember Esri talking about, you know what, this might be an effective therapy. Let's just see where this goes. And it was
it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Right, yeah. So, but it was effective. I liked it a lot. So that was very good. Forcing him to walk around without a cane and not realizing it. So, but what's first on your list, sir?
Okay, I did a lot of heavy stuff. All right, before, not gonna lie. But one that I really like, and it's more of a throwback for me. There's some pathos to it. Man, I love North Star from Enterprise.
Really?
Uh-huh. The Western.
Interesting. Yeah, the Western, where the humans were kidnapped and subjugated, and then
it's a little bit of a recycled plot point from the 37s, I will admit.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself was a wonderful way to start season 2 of Voyager. You know, it was a fun episode. There was mystery. It solved an unsolved mystery. One of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart.
Right.
And Sharon Lawrence crushed it as Amelia Earhart. Thought she was great.
I remember that episode only being remarkable for, didn't they land?
They did land the ship. That was the first time they landed the ship.
Yeah.
That was their big power move. But it was a fun episode. That's what I'll say. It was a fun episode. It was a good way. It wasn't overly heavy in its subject matter. So
right. Yeah.
So it was neat. It was a way for people to interact with humans of the past without worrying about the temporal prime directive.
True.
But
they
North
did
Star,
they did tackle rewatch. In the 37s. They did tackle the whole idea of the universal communicator, where the Japanese soldier was saying, "Your lips are moving, but I hear Japanese," and it's like that. It tackles that whole thing of like how the lips are out of sync when it comes to communication from what these people hear and everything. Yes. It's just a very big hand wave. Like, probably shouldn't have even bothered talking about it, because the universal translator is probably the most flimsy of all plot devices that Star Trek has going for it.
It might be flimsy, but it helps. At
least
they attempted to explain it. They spent
to have that.
They spent most of Enterprise with Hoshi working on a prototype of it.
Yeah, that's true. And they finally used it in the unofficial ending of Enterprise.
That's the official end. The other one's just some weird fever dream.
Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So, but
anyway, North Star, right? So they're in some ways it almost mirrored. It was interesting when you start thinking about it. It very much appears to be a mirror of how the Native Americans were treated in the West once they were basically subjugated. There was a lot of racism.
Yeah, but uncomfortably so.
And it was fascinating too, because like they're in the middle of this Xindi hunt, right?
Yes.
And they're
in the Expanse.
They're in the Expanse. They get weird signals and things. They stop and check for things, and they find a colony of humans from the 19th century, which just so you know, at this point, that's like over 200 years since some of their ancestors were kidnapped.
Yeah,
and
true.
Technology did not progress at all. There was no evolution of
Well,
this society.
You gotta think about it like this. I mean, they probably tried to hide the technology as best as possible from the humans when they were forced to live there together.
Their ship was destroyed.
Right. So they didn't have much in the way of technology, so they were able to
I'm just
recreate
saying
what
that,
they had.
They recreated what they had, but there was like no advancement in 200 years of even to the 20th century, 21st century.
You could make a comparison of like the late 1600s to the late 1800s. Not much in the way of technology changed other than in gun technology and whatnot.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't think you and I are agreeing on this.
We're not.
Even though you said exactly.
Yeah. We're not, because, I mean, not even medical technology, dude. And that at least advanced a little.
I suppose, but I mean, they're on an alien planet, so they're not familiar with any of the plants at all, or the flora, the fauna. I mean, it would have taken a while to get used to what they were dealing with, especially with 19th century humans. I mean, come on,
they're
man. Frontiersmen, don't get me wrong, but
the Pilgrims and all these guys didn't know dick about the area either when they landed.
But
and plenty
they at
of
least knew it was on Earth. Just saying.
Anyway, I always enjoyed it. For me, when I watched it, particularly, I don't think I ever saw it first run, so I ended up rewatching it, watching it on bought all the DVD set and did like a binge watch. At that point, I was living in Kansas. I was living in part of the Wild West.
Oof.
So
that
it
would
kind of,
that would give you a perspective.
I was literally living on a spur of what they called Custer Hill at this particular base in Kansas. It was the former home of the U.S. Cavalry School until like the 1920s. This is an old historic cavalry post that is now an armored cavalry post. And it just seemed to hit me a little, I'm living out west, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. That and it ended with Mako's facing off with crooked deputies in a shootout.
Right.
Which was they showed off some great some of their pretty excellent technology. There's like 2 or 3 episodes where the Makos you get to see like just how cool their gear was. It was this one, and then another one that I really liked, the Zindi, which was the first episode of season 1, or excuse me, of season 3, when they're getting ready to start this, and they're still kind of recovering from the shock of the end, where they decide they have to go into the Expanse, and then they decide they're going to give the Makos to NX-01 as they head back into the Expanse, right? Because I believe season 2 ends with them like flying into the Expanse. And
yes, it does. I mean, the whole episode takes place over the course of 9 months or something, or something along that line.
What, the Zindi?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
Well, they refer to the memorial and Trip not going, and the memorial wouldn't have happened for a long time.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they try to go. They're looking for people who might know anything about the Zindi, and then and I think they were like looking for rumors that they found a Zindi somewhere, and they end up going onto this
mining planet, awful mining
exactly.
planet. Yeah.
And they're like trying to escape through like vents,
lava
and
tubes. Yeah,
yeah, something
exhaust
like
lava
that.
tubes and things like that. They went through
And
the sewage.
Yeah, and one of the things that they find out is they're trying to meet a Zindi, but the Zindi that they meet doesn't match like
Anything they had on
the
record.
the,
Yeah.
the description of what they thought a Zindi was, even though the DNA matches. And they're like, "What is this?" And that's when they start learning that there's 5 Zindi species. And people are trying to stall Enterprise, and Archer and company are trying to get out of there. And then finally, and of course, while this is going on, then you have Malcolm Reed with his head up his ass about the Makos being on board.
I know. I hated that story arc with Malcolm. I just found him completely unreasonable. Did you find that?
I don't know, man.
Effective?
I never had my platoon or my company, stationed on board a naval vessel. I mean,
That's a
we
good
had plenty
point.
of rivalry. We had Air Force dudes assigned to us. We had a Navy guy assigned to us.
I mean, your Army. You don't take the Air Force seriously anyway.
The fact of the matter is, if an Air Force colonel walked in and said, "Hey, you need to go do something," I'm not gonna, or he's not gonna come. I say, "Hey, I need help from this Air Force colonel."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay, yes, sir," and go carry out my orders. No,
That won't happen.
That's not how this shit works.
Right.
I could say, "Excuse me, sir, I would, request some help from your unit or your office or whatever." He could go, yes or no.
I mean, let's just think about the mutual mission here. If the Makos had their own ship, I'm sure they would have taken it. But they don't, because Starfleet's in its fledgling, beginning. So you would think that after the devastating attack, that Reed would have been a little bit less assholey. A little bit.
No, apparently he was completely assholey, and that's kind of what frustrated me a little. But whether he's in position of authority or not, Hayes outranks him. He has to call him sir.
Yep.
Yeah, that dog.
I forgot about that. You're right.
Or he calls him sir. Whatever. It's stupid.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
But when the Makos drop in to rescue them, and they're like rappelling in, and you got one up there in a sniper position, and the sight pops up, and they just smoke these fools.
Yeah.
These henchmen of the miner. It was good. It ironically enough, for what I'm sure was a very liberal writer's room, actually somebody did some decent choreographing for, competent looking soldiers. They didn't look like Keystone cops out there. The same way
I would agree with that.
Starfleet security guys look like when they get smoked by somebody just randomly. I mean, how many dead security guys get killed on away missions? I mean, how many? I mean, it's redundant. How many Starfleet security guys get killed on away missions? All of them. They all die.
That's true.
It was nice to see a bunch of faceless good guys come in and actually smoke some ass. As opposed to, they beam in and it's only, Trip, Archer, and Reed surviving and then somehow solving the problem. Like, no, you have trained soldiers here. Let them do their job. Oh, look at what happens when you let them do their job.
Oh, it all works out for the best. Weird.
Yeah. Yeah. They brought in some door kickers and it actually fucking worked. What a surprise.
Right. Oh, jeez. Oh, well. Okay. I've got one here. And it's probably going to be something that is going to be a little surprising for you. Threshold.
That affected you? Or
It
I mean,
did.
if you're talking about having to go vomit, I can understand that. That will actually fit this category.
It did, and here's why. Because number one, it also made canon the Star Trek Encyclopedia saying Warp 10 will put you in every single point in the universe at the same time. And that was never explicitly stated outside of the encyclopedia until that episode.
Since Tom Paris did that, why didn't he win an Emmy? Because Michelle Yeoh was everywhere all at once, and she won an Oscar.
True. Oh, I see what you just did there. Damn it. She is. It feels like she's in everything right now. That's, but clever. That was clever. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look up another movie while I'm describing this. So, and then the idea, I thought it was a neat sci-fi thing that going into, ultra space like that would accelerate cellular growth development, not necessarily evolution. I mean, the ideal would have been them basically turning into Q, right?
Supposedly.
Right? Because that wasn't that the direction that was going? Q even said that to Riker back in season 1. So it was interesting that they went the salamander route where it was more of a de-evolution, even though they were going forward. And he developed, I don't know, it was interesting. It's not a good, but I thought it was interesting.
The only thing I can say is the makeup did a great job. Tom Paris was hideous.
Yeah,
and gross.
He was, yes.
All the love to Robert Duncan McNeil on that. That was fucking out of control.
Mm-hmm. So I liked that. And then I'm going to do an honorable mention in that vein, and then I'll talk about something more serious. Up the Long Ladder. Because when I was young, I appreciated the idea of seeing Irish culture being represented in sci-fi. Now, I was young, and I'm
so you didn't realize that was a mockery of Irish culture.
I had no idea it was a mockery of Irish culture. So I would enjoy that episode when it happened when I was young. Looking back, I understand what the term Irish means now. So
no, but they don't call them the Irish. They're the Bringloidy.
Right. So they could get around that, but it was an interesting deal.
So, and I got to tell you, that part where Picard just starts laughing about. Sometimes you just have to laugh at the absurd, and that's kind of what I take away from that episode. Because it goes to that level of ridiculous, where the leader of the group is this drunken goofball, but his shrewish daughter, who's the ramrod and will keep everybody, is the real one really running things. And then you go to the other colony, which gets fucking dark.
Yeah. Where they clone.
Kidnapping Riker and Pulaski and taking DNA samples and then cloning them, and then Riker just phasering these clones in their chambers. I'm like, we want to talk about Star Trek, with the positivity and whatnot, but those early seasons of Next Gen weren't afraid to do some horrible things.
But the episode was also recognized as being horrible at the same time.
Agreed.
As opposed to being celebrated by said critics, I mean, so there was a little bit more calling out back then in the mainstream access media and whatnot. So that's my little thing there. Now, I my serious one. Can I do this? I'm
Please
sure you've
do.
got a list.
I have a list.
I am sure you do. Inner Light.
Yep.
Okay, for two reasons.
I thought I was going to try to stay away from the best of list, but I have things that probably would classify, so it's hard to argue with it by all means.
And it affects me differently than what it's supposed to, because when I was a kid, I thought it was neat. Oh, cool. He gets to live a whole lifetime and whatnot. And then he wakes up and he realized he was on the bridge the whole time and everything. And, you know, I also, it wasn't lost on me that he learned the skill of playing the Reskin flute while he was in that coma, being, you know, given all that information and everything and the significance of that. But the draw for that episode for me was the fact that they had the penny whistle, and I did everything within my power to try to learn that song orally. And I did a pretty good approximation of it growing up. But every time that episode came on, by the way, I didn't know when it was coming on. So when it did come on, I would be like appointment viewing. Shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm trying to listen. Shut up, shut up, shut up.
No wonder why you were so popular at home.
I know. But then I took the opportunity to watch it last year. And dang, dude. Like, having grown up, having my own children, having experienced, you know, new birth and loss like that, dang. Like, how did they fit an entire lifetime in 42 minutes? I don't know, but they did it perfectly. It was probably one of the most perfectly written episodes, tonally, structurally, and pace-wise. Just perfect.
There's still a debate as to whether or not it's the best episode of The Next Generation.
I'm not going to argue about whether it's the best episode or not. When I think about it, I don't think of it as being the best episode. I still think Best of Both Worlds Part 1 is that. But, I mean,
you might say it's the most beautiful episode of The Next Generation.
I would say that. It's right on par with the City on the Edge of Forever.
That one was kind of heartbreaking at the end, too. Well, that one was really heartbreaking at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Trek is on, it is spot on. When it comes to these, it can tug at your heartstrings. It can make you question reality.
Mm-hmm.
It can make you question your own identity. But it can also make you hopeful for the future. And it can also make you question the humans of today. Like when you watch Code of Honor. And you're like, man, there were some messed up fuckers in our parents' generation.
And they did it again with Stargate.
We will Stargate not SG-1. Speak of this again.
Yeah. Oof. So
the Inner Light is that will hit you right in the feels.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has the initial, I must get back to my ship because he still thinks he's Picard, and then you know they're about ready to have him committed, and then he just starts taking advantage of this, you know, this situation per se.
Mm-hmm.
He begins to accept it, and he has a loving wife. He has children. He has grandchildren. He has friends. He's well respected. But he has this full, rich life. Not saying Jean-Luc Picard did not have a full life, but they were showing later and later in his Picard that he understands that there are things that are missing. A wife, family, You know,
Right.
I mean, you see this as early as when he really starts taking Wesley under his wing. Then you see it again when he comes home during Family. Family was another beautiful but tough episode. At the end where Picard just melts down and after a fight in the mud with his brother
Mm-hmm.
and just begins to pour his soul out about how weak he felt and how he tried to fight them and that it still didn't work and thousands of people died because of what he knew and he couldn't stop them.
No matter how hard he tried.
And there's a catharsis with that. And then you also have Worf going through a bit of I wouldn't say a catharsis per se, but definitely you got to see a little bit of a softer side of Worf.
Yeah. Yeah.
See the absolute adoration that his parents have for him.
That's true.
How much they love him.
And he keeps pushing them away. Like, and I never understood. Like, I still don't quite understand that necessarily. I mean, maybe it was after his discommendation from the Empire, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that was the shame. Never mind. I just needed a reminder. And he didn't want to bring shame to the Rashenko family either by his association with them. That all makes sense now.
Well, and then you also get Wesley's little video message from his dad.
Yeah, and that was cute.
Well,
and we get to see that actor later.
As a soldier, the thought of leaving messages, like when I was on my week-long trek home to make it for my daughter's birthday, I was writing notes, or when my daughter's birth, I was writing notes in this book, in this journal, trying to chronicle. And I was hoping that I was going to write more while I was deployed, and I didn't. But I did write some things, and I did end up giving it to her when she was older. It's probably only a few pages of notes and whatnot, but the idea of leaving messages for your children because you're not sure if you're going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old soldier's thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So
what was it? O'Brien said, I can't recall how many of these letters I've prepared for Keiko before going into battle.
I think he said it was like 15 or something like that.
Yeah. Something along that line. I remember seeing that. It wasn't during like the last arc.
I think it was during To the Death with the rogue gem, with the joint mission with the Jem'Hadar.
Oh yeah.
To wipe out the
Iconian
gateway and the rogue Jem'Hadar. First appearance of Weyoun. And what everybody thought was going to be the last appearance.
His last appearance. Wasn't that when they established that they were clones? Like after that episode,
right.
But when bringing Weyoun back.
When they brought Weyoun back, that's when they introduced it.
Right. Yeah. The producers just liked Jeffrey Combs. What can we say?
They liked him as Weyoun.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought him back for other roles, but they liked him as Weyoun, so they brought Weyoun back.
They certainly did. Dang. Man. Okay, I got one. Wait, you have another one. I went a couple times already. Keep going.
So I rewatched because I talked a little bit about The Long Dark, which was the episode of Babylon 5 from its second season when Dwight Schultz was playing the homeless soldier who was stricken with PTSD and, bordering on madness and everything. And it was a pretty good horror episode too.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you have two things going on, and one is you have this basically the equivalent of a homeless veteran who would break out into raving lunatic speeches in the public areas and freaking out, and other, he would also have his moments of lucidity, but clearly a man who'd seen a lot of trouble. And then you have the cryo ship that showed up, with the mysterious death of one passenger, and then a lot of weird things happening. And it turns out that the ship was carrying a creature, the same creature that had wiped out this poor soldier's whole unit during the Minbari War. The man was literally struggling with his demons, real live demons, not just PTSD, which he also had so much of, but actual struggling with demons.
Oh.
And it was a very powerful episode. Just Dwight Schultz put on a tour de force of both madness and anger and frustration and despair. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you had, and then it's Garibaldi who was able to get through to him and tries and learns that this guy wasn't just a scumbag. He was a very severely mentally disturbed hero. I mean, he had a list of commendations and all and medals and such. Had given good service, but was tortured by these memories of actual torture. It probably wasn't exactly torture because the creature feeds off people's life force and fear. But still, that has to be horrible. And it was just such a great episode. But spurred on by my memories of watching that, I had another episode I wanted to do, A View from the Gallery from the 5th season. And this is actually taken from the perspective of 2 maintenance workers on B5.
Oh, that's interesting.
At the very beginning of in the early episodes of season 5, where everybody's having to do another big paradigm shift because B5 got a late renewal for a 5th season, and they had already wrapped up, the Shadow War, the Earth Civil War, and now oh fuck, what do we do now?
Yeah, I'm all out of story.
Claudia Christian left, so they had to bring in a new captain because Sheridan is now president of the Interstellar Alliance, which now makes its home on Babylon 5. And the new captain is Elizabeth Lockley. And a lot of people are interested to know more about her. But so basically, it's from the perspective of these two. It's, like the Peanut Gallery, right? It's almost like a Lower Decks episode.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
These are 2 maintenance guys who kind of bounce in and out of scenes while Babylon 5 is bracing for an attack by an unknown fleet of raiders that are trying to test their defenses to see if, this area is ripe for invasion. And, the whole time, this one guy's going and working on the machines up in ops or in CNC when the scout ships come through to scout out, and they're trying to take out the scouts so they can't get information back to their home base. And he's like fixing things as shit's going on around him. He's pulling out like cockroaches that are eating the wiring. Got another guy who's down, fixing some machinery in med lab. So Franklin, while Franklin is giving a speech to his medical personnel about having all different types of blood on hand and
Mhm.
all sorts of things that, because of course there's different aliens on Deep Space Nine, different races on or Babylon 5. Sorry. But then he's also, we don't know what this enemy breathes or what their blood like, so I want things on hand so I can synthesize things. And the guy who's fixing it finally goes, why? Why? And and Franklin's like, what do you mean, why? He's like, well, Doc, all these people are coming here to kill us. And if I see somebody down that, this bad guy down on the ground, I'm just going to let him die. It's like, and Franklin kind of, instead of getting indignant, he gets a little indignant, but instead of going off on a tirade, he's like, sometimes he's like, why do we even bother? And Franklin kind of echoes it. Why do we even bother? It feels like nobody else is playing by the rules, so why should we? And then he kind of talks through some things, personal things with him, and how he became a healer and whatnot. But he kind of makes a point to this worker. I once saw a doctor put his life at risk to save my father. And he's like, and that's when I knew I wanted to be a doctor. And so I'm going to go out there when the battle's over and try to save anybody as I can, our side or theirs. And he's like, I would hope somebody would do that for me, and this guy, he kind of gets it a little, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like he wasn't going to fix this shit, but he just, because, clearly he was told he had to do it, but it's still, some of these guys have a chance to like cross paths with some of the bigger figures on Babylon 5 and witness things that they only see or heard in passing, right?
Right.
There's a discussion about Sheridan and Delen's relationship, and then they were talking about, well, I like Sheridan. He's a guy who's not afraid to get his hands dirty. So I'll beat the shit out of some guy who attacked Delen. That was from an episode. And then, which is good because they referred to some things in previous episodes, but then they're walking away and the guy goes, well, I heard he was dead once. The other guy goes, nobody's perfect. So
that's cute.
Yeah.
It's kind of a meta commentary on the show inside the show.
Well, yeah, I've heard it, and I don't know the production, but I've heard that it's analogous to, what is it? The two characters from Hamlet.
Guildenstern.
Rosencrantz.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the play. That's the existential play. But yeah, in Hamlet, they served as like a commentary on that. Right. Yes. Interesting. That's funny because that episode basically encapsulates all of what Lower Decks is to me. The whole cartoon.
Well, the interesting thing is this was co-written by Harlan Ellison.
And who is that? I don't know who that is.
I think he was the guy who originally wrote City on the Edge of Forever.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
Yeah, good for him. See, now that's a good writer right there. He was able. Look at that range. I mean, although he did know how to bring a sense of humanity in an extraordinary circumstance.
Well, as one does.
As one does. So, very good. I like that. I'll have to
Harlan
check
Ellison,
that out.
Yep,
sometime.
City on the Edge of Forever. Yep. So, it was a fascinating one. And it kind of popped to me because every now and then in my military career, like I've passed by the big wigs. It's like I knew I wasn't exactly a working Joe, but
right.
At times you're like, okay then. I guess that see a different side here.
Mm-hmm.
But it was at times humorous and at times poignant, and I appreciated it. I know it's not everybody's favorite episode of B5, and I know there are a lot of people who have mixed reviews on season 5. Season 5 was, I think, the only season of Babylon 5 I think I watched from start to finish while it was on TV. Just, at different times of life, you miss an episode here, that sort of thing. I really tried to watch this.
Right.
But I enjoyed that one. It made sense to me. And I think the one that hits me the most from B5 is from season 2. It's called Gropos. And it's when Franklin's father and his entire infantry division of 20,000 troops invades Babylon 5 en route to a training mission, which turns out they're going to basically kind of diffuse like a civil war in some neighboring small time interstellar neighbor.
Okay.
But this is what under the Clark regime. So this is like Earth expanding, kind of flexing its muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And, so 20,000 people. So they end up bunking, at early season 2 was when they had that pilot who was supposed to be part of the main cast.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
6 or 7 episodes.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Keffer. And this was a good Keffer episode because they dropped a couple of infantry dudes in his quarters. And at first it looks like there's going to be a throwdown. And then, you've got it's the stereotype. You got the big old dog who smokes cigars and tells war stories. But he's kind of a big jovial dude, even though he could throw anybody through a wall. And then you've got the young pup who's like, I want to be just like this guy, kind of learn from him. And, at first it starts a little funky, and then you got all these soldiers who get in there and they start drinking, and then fights break out, and then, a few of them get a little, start harassing Delenn, and the feisty little redhead, comes in and kicks their ass. And then she wants to hook up with Garibaldi, but Garibaldi does his best Garibaldi impersonation and screws the pooch on it because he puts his foot in his mouth by overthinking. But it's a fascinating thing because then you have all that chaos going on, and then you have Franklin and his dad just going head to head. And his dad is Paul Winfield. He was Captain Dathon from Darmok.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He was Captain Terrell from Star Trek II.
That's right. He was.
The Wrath of Khan.
Love Paul Winfield.
May
he was always
exactly. And he's the military man who wanted his son to, follow him in his footsteps. And Franklin decides to go out on a, go to medical school and then go out and treat aliens, where General Dad is like, you should be, if you're going to do that, you should be treating humans and shit like that. And they butt heads and they argue, but they finally, because this mission is secret and only Sheridan, like Franklin doesn't know because he doesn't need to know. Sheridan and Ivanova and Garibaldi know because Garibaldi's got to keep the peace, and Sheridan's helping him plan the attack. And Ivanova's Ivanova. She would have found out anyway.
Right. She's Russian. That's what she does.
Yeah. So you have some interesting interesting discussions between General Franklin and Sheridan over the meaning of what it means to be a soldier, and are you a murderer? Sheridan, it's like, I know the Minbari think I am. So I mean, it was pretty good. And this is when they also bring in a bunch of shit to install high grade weapons into Babylon 5, so that they can put up a fight, which they end up needing later on, mostly against Earth ships. But it's okay.
Yeah, well,
but
politics get complicated.
I enjoy just even as a whatever 12 or 13-year-old, like, all right, they're bringing in soldiers, cool.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. And that was fascinating. But as I got older and what turns out to be like my every 5-year Babylon Reef watch is what it seems to shake out as I've gotten older. The fact that there's just there's so many things that kind of ring true. You know, people on leave, maybe doing risky or dumb behavior, or the old guy telling war stories, the young guy asking, following the old guy, asking questions, trying to be like him. The the conflicts between the people who fly and the people who are on the ground, all
Right.
that rings true to me. But then you also have the people who just want a few minutes of something before they go on to their next shitty assignment or their next brush with death. I've seen it all. I've seen
Yeah.
all of it, and
Yeah.
the older I get, some of these really pop with me. Episodes like that.
Well, I remember the way that episode ended. It was very tragic.
Yeah,
Because pretty much every soldier we met,
all the infantry guys die.
yeah, every single one, and it's like,
Even
for
the
what?
guys you hate in the ones who are starting problems, they're all dead. The
Right.
good guys are dead. The feisty redhead is dead. They all die. The only one who's alive is Franklin's dad, because he's a general. So this isn't the Civil War. He shouldn't be leading exactly, charges on these things. But Franklin's worried because he doesn't know, and of course it's war, so it happens. It could
Right.
happen. And they get the newsreel, right? They get the news report from the front, and Franklin's watching a news feed and with Ivanova and whatnot, and he he breathes a sigh of relief when his dad comes on to speak, and then everybody starts, Garibaldi starts passing around the casualty list, and then everybody who has somebody that they knew on that list, they all put it down in despair.
Yes. Yeah, very poignant. That was a
Yeah.
tough watch, and I still wasn't sold on B5 at that point, but I watched it because it was just something to watch before Star Trek.
It was a great
And,
episode.
it allowed me to follow it, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And I felt that devastation, especially seeing the female soldier. What's her name? Do you recall her name?
Dodger.
Damn it, you knew this. I was gonna.
I think I watched it this past year. Like I said, I probably watched this episode a half a dozen times, maybe more. It's one of those ones that's an immediate on the rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
There's some I may have only watched once or twice. There's others I've watched maybe upwards of 10 times, and this might be one of them.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna stay away from Star Trek.
I mean, it's not
We'll
like
eventually be
B5
getting
is
back to
known
it.
for good writing, so.
You're being
But
facetious,
keep going.
right?
No, they very much are known for very good writing.
I mentioned this previously. You probably won't remember. You haven't seen it. Stargate SG-1, Episode 6, Season 1, Cold Lazarus. It's an episode that opens up where the team basically opens up to it. They come out to a desert planet, but it's yellow sand. It's a very interesting cinematic style they chose. It was yellow sand, bright yellow sand. And they come across a depression in the sand where there's all these broken crystals and whatnot. And there's one that's still unbroken. O'Neill leans down and is about to touch it, and you can see that we're watching O'Neill through the crystal when there's a flash of light and an explosion.
Through the looking glass, I see.
Sort of, yeah. And then O'Neill falls down, passes out, and then wakes up. But as the camera pans away from a passed out O'Neill, we see another O'Neill standing there watching him, going, I need to find, what's his name? Shoot, I need to find the son's name. Charlie. I need to find Charlie. And
Ooh.
so this whole thing is this imposter O'Neill going back to the SGC, finding out more. Like, he basically downloaded a lot of stuff about O'Neill and everything. And then he ultimately, what it is the Goa'uld, the soldiers of the aliens that we saw in the movie, came to this planet earlier, got the crystals, tried to defend themselves, but the Goa'uld destroyed most of them. And to preserve the last of his kind, this last crystal who survived was scared that Earth was going to retaliate against the rest of his people. So what his prerogative was to do was to fix the pain that he felt in O'Neill. And that pain was the loss of his son at his gun. Because that's the story from the movie, right? And it was interesting because the episode tied itself to the movie very strongly in that regard. But, you know, at this point, O'Neill is separated from his wife. He's estranged from her. The imposter reaches out to her, and her name is Sarah, and says, we need to find Charlie. And she's freaking out, like, what do you mean we need to find Charlie? And eventually, while that's happening, the real O'Neill wakes up, makes a mad dash to the Stargate, gets through, and the SGC is like, what is going on? And he's like, you mean that there was someone here that looked just like me looking for Charlie and Sarah? And so then there's a mad dash to find this. The alien starts to degenerate. And that's when he explains why he was trying to find Charlie, because he wanted to make things right and take away the pain so that they wouldn't be hurt. So he and the real O'Neill finds Sarah with the alien who's deteriorating, and the alien's apologizing, saying, I wish I could take away that pain, but I can give you this one last thing. And you see the two O'Neills, their faces just change, and the camera pans around, and you see Charlie reaching out to them. He changed forms into the form of Charlie. And they get to hug Charlie one more time before he dissipates into nothingness. Rough watch, man. But it was...
That sounds kind of cruel.
It was written in a way that gave closure to them. It could easily have been cruel, absolutely. But that was so emotionally heavy, and I saw that when I was in my early 20s, and my brain was beginning to switch on to the empathy factor of losing, potentially losing a child, and understanding how that could be so debilitating and whatnot.
Horrifying. But
not understanding it. You know what I mean? And that episode, when that ended, I just sat there looking at my computer, going, "Whew, boy." I had to get up and I had to go for a long walk on campus to get that through my head and processed and everything. But that was the episode. That was the episode that really showed the depths, the emotional depths of what SG-1 can do. Yes, the criminal sin in the pilot was they never mentioned the airman ever again after she was taken. Agreed completely. This showed the writers trying to take into all those losses into account now, and showing that kind of empathy among the main characters. Did they
ever mention that girl again?
No, absolutely not. Not once. They easily could have.
Sin of Stargate.
It really was. But that episode, man, like, you can understand how heavy that is, right? Like, just...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, very well done. Very well acted. I don't recommend you watching it if you are in any way depressed or sad or feeling any kind of loss. Or maybe you can, I don't know, but very good.
Not on my list to watch right now.
No. And then can I just go to my next one because it has a similar theme?
Ugh.
I know, but it's in my head. Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 13, Life Support.
Oh.
The Loss of Vedic Baral.
Yeah. You know, when I first started watching Deep Space Nine as a kid, Bareil felt very wooden. When I've watched the following rewatches, and I've seen additional episodes, rewatched it, and it's not that Bareil is wooden, but he's very dry. He actually has a fairly good sense of humor. And but the loss of a fairly significant recurring character and somebody who meant a lot to Kira is
someone who loved Kira, who gave
Yeah.
Kira something that she was sorely lacking in life, especially in a world, filled with Cardassian occupations, and you don't know who's going to survive the next year. I liked Bareil, probably more than you did. I can understand the woodenness factor, but I did find him appealing, especially, and I liked seeing the other side of Kira. I liked seeing her be happy. I liked seeing some relief in her life. I liked that. And then this episode,
because you got real emotion with Kira, real emotion that wasn't just anger. You got to see a more playful side, a loving side.
Absolutely. And then the cruelness of slowly losing Bareil throughout the whole episode.
I think the worst part of it was when Bareil was conscious, talking, but there was like no emotion there.
Right. Because they were slowly replacing parts of his brain with the positronic net in order to keep him alive to continue the Cardassian negotiations, because he was so key to getting this done.
Right.
But yeah, and then like the more they put him into the more positronic networks they put in to stabilize him, the more they lost him, ironically enough. And wasn't it at the end where Kira, desperate, is desperate to save his life still, she goes to Bashir and goes, you could put more components in, you could keep stabilizing him, and he goes, Commander, or I'm sorry,
Major,
thank you. Major, if I put more in, there's not going to be anything left of him. And that gave me pause. And at the end of the episode, she had to say goodbye. And Bashir said to Kira, he's probably going to survive another 3 hours. And she goes, okay, well, I'm just going to stay right here then during that time, keeping him company. And Bashir walked out, closing shot. Kira just standing, maybe, standing by the bed, holding his hand. Cut to black. Whew. And I remember looking at the clock when that episode ended. And then I remember 3 hours later when I looked at the clock again and I go, oh, Bareil's officially dead now. I literally turned it into a real-time situation. Like, that was all the time that she was spending with him. That it affected me long after that episode had ended. So that was good. I loved that episode. I can't watch it to this day because it literally was just really hard. Literally, figuratively. I don't know. So
it was not an easy watch. It was a good episode. You have And of course, you have Kai Wynn in there.
Oh God. F you, my child.
She.
she was a contradiction, wasn't she?
Yeah.
An amazing contradiction of
Was that the episode that she was
purpose
sick
and-
as a dog?
yes, yeah, she had the flu. She had the flu. She had like 103 fever. Like she
God
was
bless her. She
I know.
kicked ass.
Ever the consummate professional, right? Just
Ever the condescending bitch.
and she didn't skip a step in that at all. So, but yeah, I remember reading about that in the captain's logbooks. So it's a couple heavy things. I mean, aren't most of these episodes supposed to be heavy? That's why I opened up with a couple light things and honorable mentions.
I mean, yeah. There's a difference between being affected and it being like, you can have a heavy subject without it being heartbreaking in some ways.
Mm.
You know, I mean, granted, I'd be lying if I said all of mine weren't. But that's why I also started off with some lighter ones too.
Right. So there we go, folks. Nothing but death and pain to look forward to from here on out for the rest of the show.
Well, I mean, I'll say this with an episode like View from the Gallery. For the most part, it was. I wouldn't say it's always like because there was a backdrop of a battle going on, but there were a couple of sobering moments in that episode, but overall it was lighter at times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was balanced, I'd like to say. I mean, the same thing with Gropos was that it had moments of levity, moments of insanity, but you know, but most of the rest on the list was pretty rough. I mean, the Zindi was a pretty straightforward Star Trek episode, you know, with a little action, a little adventure, you know, problem solving, that sort of thing. I wouldn't. That probably had less impact. At times, it felt like maybe that one had it. No, I would say it has a few moments of like heavier moments and outside of the inevitable Trekkie action that you get, but
Sure.
you know, it's not quite like an In the Pale Moonlight or Siege of AR-558. I mean, I also mentioned last week the Clone Wars episode Rookies from season 1.
Yeah.
I rewatched it today, and season 1 animation is so blocky, and even the clone voices are a little less refined, but
yeah,
it was still a good episode. It was a
Mm-hmm.
really good episode with a bunch of brand new soldiers being forced basically without support to try to find a way to prevent a massive invasion by fighting back. I mean, yeah, they get Cody and Rex to show up to kind of help make the plan, but it's one of these rookies who literally sacrifices himself and blows up this communication outpost that they were manning, that the Separatists were trying to take over, and that's what saves Camino from a surprise attack, is by them blowing up their own, post, because they had hardwired an all safe signal. So then once the Republic knows it's up, they're able to show up and head off the Separatist attack. But, you know, you have a guy who's just threw himself basically on and hit the auto destruct button. And you have his two brothers who are left standing there and looking, going, man, Heavy always did hate this place. And it was kind of funny but it's also, I mean, the what were they? The droids are like, do we take prisoners? And the clone goes, I don't. And he hits the button right there and blows it all to hell. And it was a great ending. And you get a little back from 2 seasons later in season 3. It's called ARC Troopers, which takes place in the presumptive actual invasion of Camino by the Separatists. It's no longer a surprise because of the clones' actions on the moon, but you have Echo and Fives, 2 of the more prominent clones in the Clone Wars behind like Rex and Cody. And they show up back at. Do you remember who Clone 99 was?
Wasn't he like the janitor or something?
Yeah, basically, he was one of the first batch of clones, but there was an issue. There was some there was a malfunction in his cloning pod. He came out all deformed and he looks ancient. You know,
like Quasimodo, basically.
Basically, yeah. But he still had a sharp mind and a good heart, and there were a lot of, and in a prequel to this episode was an episode where it's heavy Fives, Echo, and the other guys from Domino Squad while they're training as cadets, and they're all kind of doing their own thing and not working as a team. And it's 99 who kind of talks to a couple of them, especially Heavy, and talks them into taking a more leadership role here, and is the one who basically sets these guys up to survive the outpost.
Right.
But 99 is, he in some ways he's kind of a mentor figure, but he wants to fight. He wants to be with his brothers.
I think I saw this.
It was good
years ago. Yeah.
But then you flash forward to this episode, ARC Troopers. So the Separatists have gotten aboard the main cloning facility in Camino, their home city, and the Separatists are breaking in, but one of their things that they're trying to do is actually steal the Jango Fett genome and the DNA sample so that they can, genetic sample, so they can prevent the clones from making more clones. And what ends up happening is that the Republic starts to beat them back, but enough of these droids have gotten into the city that they're wreaking havoc, and they're attacking the cloning pods, they're attacking the cadets, the children versions, and Rex and Cody find Echoes and Five, and they're looking to set up an ambush, and then 99 finds them, brings them grenades, and then he shows them where to set up an ambush, and then they find a bunch of clone cadets running around, so they grab these kids and they bring them in there, and they're trying to protect the kids. But basically it turns into be kind of like a close quarters firefight in the barracks. The kids jump out and ambush with blasters, but there's a lot more droids, and the combat veteran clones are putting up a fight, but they're running out of ammo, and 99 says, I'll go get more ammo, and they're like, no, don't. And of course inevitably gets gunned down trying to prove that he was a brother, that he was
a soldier.
But and I think that's something that Cody says at the end, is like he died as a true soldier. He had brought ammo and weapons to the cadets, to the other clones, grenades, ammunition, more weapons. Several times during the fight, he was the one who showed them where to set up the ambush, and there's a lot of the prevailing opinion is that Clone Force 99, aka the Bad Batch, they're named after 99.
Mm-hmm.
So 99 was one of those heartbreaking clone deaths. I could go ahead and give you a list of 10 right off the top of my head of heartbreaking clone deaths in the Clone War. It was such in that TV show. It was so brutal. There was a scene where some of the early clone defenses are getting overrun by Ventress, Grievous, and a swath of battle droids, and all the rest of them have been wiped out, and this one lone clone officer with dual blasters is like trying to fight him off, and Ventress force pushes him into the wall, knocks his guns out of his hand, his helmet off his head, puts out her blade, and force pulls him right onto it and impales him. And then she just leans over and kisses him on the cheek and lets his body drop. I'm like, this is some fucked up stuff.
Oh God. Dude. Yeah. I can't say that I have any that I was really affected with Clone Wars. I mean, I'd say the final scene of Clone Wars when we see Darth Vader looking for Ahsoka and seeing her quote unquote grave.
Yeah.
And that the fact that he went to look for her.
Yeah, and that was it showed that he was still in some ways still Anakin Skywalker in there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I found that interesting. I mean, we've talked about that episode in depth when it first came out. Well, not when it first came out, but
when we first reviewed it.
Yeah, when we first reviewed it. So that was good.
I mean, the Clone Wars were good. Rebels, there was plenty of great Rebels episodes, but I watched one today, and another one that kind of, this is the one that gets you in the feels because of the episode they find Rex in season 2, The Lost Commanders. They find Rex, Gregor, and Wolf. And Gregor's still crazy. Wolf is very skeptical and worried that they're going to get in trouble with the Empire. And Rex is, well, he's just, he kind of wants to stay hidden, kind of retire, but he's willing to help a little. But is dealing with some serious PTSD.
Yes.
He refuses to trust him. And it took a good full season, I think, for Kanan and Rex to really kind of get on the same page.
Wasn't it the episode was like the last Clone War or something?
There was the last battle or something like that.
Yeah, the last battle of the Clone Wars or something. Wasn't that when they really just buried the hatchet?
Well, yeah, they started to make true, and since they both, since Kanan trusted Ahsoka, he admitted that later by the end it was going to be hard, but he was going to try. It's still, right. Yeah, but then they end up coming face to face with some old battle droids who want to finish the Clone War, and then they agree to work together when they realize the Empire is the real enemy. But and that one was kind of wild too, because Rex was dealing with some serious PTSD in that episode. He was snapping at Ezra. He was just so angry, and I mean, why wouldn't he be? The man fought was bred his entire life to fight. He fights for what he, something he thought he believed in. you know, and then later it was as much about fighting for his brothers as it was the Republic, and all the horrible things he finds out, all the brothers he lost, the Order 66, the collapse of the Republic, the Jedi, everything, the loss of friends, you know, the man is how he's still standing some days. You gotta wonder.
It is questionable, that's for sure. But then again, I mean, you look at other Starfleet, Star Trek episodes. I mean, the stuff that those Starfleet officers go through every day. Any one of those episodes would derail a single regular person for the rest of their life. I mean, think about Frame of Mind.
You think so?
You know, where Riker doesn't know if he's in reality or in the play or really a prisoner and whatnot. That movie, that episode freaked me out, dude. I didn't.
That episode was.
That was a mind freak, dude. And I
that's one that is not on a regular rewatch. If I'm doing like a run through, then I'll watch it. But it's not one of those ones like, oh, you know what I'm gonna watch today? Frame of Mind. Yeah. No, it's not like watching Best of Both Worlds or a Fistful of Datas or
nope.
One of the Q episodes. No, it's gonna be Frame of Mind.
Yep.
Pass.
Oh God.
Nope. I'm gonna go ahead and say Measure of a Man, that's a remote drop.
Yes. That is a remote drop. I would agree. We've talked about that. Question for you.
Huh?
Are you afraid of the dark? Does that count as sci-fi fantasy? No?
Oh, no, I'm not afraid of the dark.
No, stop it. The Nickelodeon one. Show.
I mean, weren't they like telling ghost stories around the fire? Wasn't that it?
Yeah. Kind of, paranormal, sci-fi-ish stuff. There was, we brought up Frame of Mind. There were a couple episodes that came to mind real quick. I just want to bring up. The first one, I don't remember the one it was. There was an episode where this kid goes to the mall, meets a girl, and then he goes to this like toy, interesting shop with knickknacks and things like that. Comes across a pinball machine. The owner of the shop says, "Do not play with the pinball machine. You can get sucked into it." And lo and behold,
literal.
Yeah, he lo and behold gets sucked into it, and
Jumanji.
But he's like dealing with running around said mall and everything, and the girl that he met earlier is like being captured and used as bait to have him chase her throughout the mall. They finally get through what they need to beat the game, and as they walk through the door, they come into another version of the mall, and they look up through the window, the skylight, and they see the owner of the shop, and he goes, "Congratulations, it's another round." And he's like, "But wait, I played this game. We beat it." And he's like, "Yeah, but you played the game, and I told you not to play the game. And that is, you're now there forever." Yeah, forever. And I was like, whoa, so that dude is just stuck in the game for the rest of the time. That's heady for a 10-year-old to watch.
Yeah, it is.
That had a sci-fi element to it, like move along home. Yeah.
Nope, pass.
I know. I had another one I wanted to talk about, but it's not that sci-fi-y. It's more paranormal-y. But it was good. Anyway. The Tale of the Prom Date.
Pass.
People will just want to know what the name is, that's all. So, I'm pretty tapped out for right now. Where are you at?
I mean, I had written a couple others down, but nothing that we really need to dive into. We've hit on a lot today.
We really did. We absolutely did. So, like some fun ones, some heavy ones, a lot more heavy.
Most of them were kind of heavy because they
A little bit.
We might need to do like remote drop ones sometime soon, like ones you're like, oh, sweet.
Yeah, no matter where you're at, you just watch it. I would agree with that.
Some may be on this list. Some may be, it's like trials and tribulations. It's not exactly, high drama. It's just fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they tried to put high drama in it, or at least entertaining.
Right. So, well, very good. All right, then. Well, on that note, everybody, we are those sci-fi guys. You guys keep dreaming. We'll keep working. I am PSBK. It's out there.
And from all of us to all of you, hope you had a good, happy St. Patrick's Day, and I'll see you on the high ground.
Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by Alphasite Productions, produced by DT Kaufman and PS McKay. Music courtesy of Camtasia. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow PS McKay on X at PS McKay, or go to thosesci-figuys.com for past episode information.